Movie Recaps presents Avengers Endgame. The movie begins with Clint Barton training his young daughter in archery near his idyllic homestead, while his wife prepares a picnic lunch for their family. Suddenly, Clint's daughter is vaporized into dust, along with the rest of his family, because of Thanos' snap. Following their defeat on Titan by Thanos, Nebula and Tony are stranded on an abandoned ship in outer space. It appears that all is lost until Captain Marvel rescues them and brings them back to Earth, where they join Natasha Romanoff, Bruce Banner, Steve Rogers, and Rocket, as well as Thor and James Rhodes, who are all working together to find a way to reclaim the stones and reverse Thanos' snap. When they find Thanos alone on a planet, they discover that he used the stones a second time in order to destroy the stones. Furious about this, Thor cuts off Thanos' head, saying it is what he should have done in Wakanda in the first place. 5 years pass. 5 years since the snap, and Steve Rogers has been organizing support groups for those still dealing with the effects of the disaster. Meanwhile, Scott Lang manages to escape from the quantum realm and starts to look for his daughter Cassie. He finds her and finds out that she has grown 5 years, and that half of all life in the universe has been wiped out by Thanos' snap. Scott goes to Romanoff and Rogers, and although it has been 5 years for them, Scott mentions that it's only been 5 hours for him in the quantum realm, and that they may be able to time travel through the quantum realm. They all show up at Tony Stark's cottage, where he is raising a young daughter with Pepper Potts. They try enlisting his help in building a time machine to go back in time and retrieve the stones before Thanos can collect them. At first, Tony rejects their proposal, worried about gambling with his family and the harmony he has found. However, later on, considering the loss of Peter Parker, he decides to test hypothetical models that would work with Scott's quantum theory, and finds one that works. With Tony now ready, the others go on a mission to reassemble their group. They find Bruce Banner, who has now embraced his dual nature. He has been able to combine his intelligence with the Hulk's form into a single being called Professor Hulk. Romanoff has heard reports about a professional killer named Ronan, who uses Barton-like techniques and decides to track him down. Natasha manages to find Barton, ruthlessly killing criminal cartels in Japan. After some persuasion, he agrees to rejoin the group to bring his family back. Hulk and Rocket go to the modest community of New Asgard, where Valkyrie and the last Asgardians have settled. There they find Thor, who feels guilty for not killing Thanos the first time. Thor has become obese, his hair and facial hair are longer. He uses his spare energy to eat junk food, get drunk, play Fortnite with his buddies Korg and Meek. Thor reluctantly agrees to rejoin the Avengers after Rocket and Banner convince him to do so. Together they all test the quantum time machine now, with Barton. Barton does manage to show up at his farm in the past. When he returns, he confirms that the time machine does work. The Avengers are all brought together, and Banner, Rogers, Lang, and Tony set out to retrieve the Time, Mind, and Space Stones during the 2012 attack on New York. When they return to 2012, Banner goes to the Sanctum Sanctorum, where the Ancient One tells him that removing the Time Stone from that timeline would prevent Stephen Strange from preventing Caecilius from destroying Earth. However, when Banner tells her that Dr. Strange voluntarily gave the Time Stone to Thanos, she allows Banner to use the Time Stone to defeat Thanos. Banner additionally agrees that the stones will be brought back to their respective timelines when the plan works. Lang and Tony set out to capture the Tesseract. Tony has Lang give his past self a mild heart attack, pulling a circuit in his arc reactor. Tony, disguised as a guard, retrieves the case holding the Tesseract when no one is looking, but is sideswiped by Hulk coming through a door. Tony drops his case and slides to Loki, who takes the Tesseract and uses it to disappear and escape. Steve Rogers retrieves the Mind Stone from the undercover Hydra specialists, but encounters and battles his past self, who mistakes him for the undercover Loki. Steve manages to knock out his past self and reunites with Tony and Lang, who are trying to figure out another method to get the Space Stone without depleting the small amount of Pym particles that make this possible. Rogers and Tony come up with a scheme to take the Tesseract from a U.S. military base in the 1970s and bring home more vials of PIM particles at the same time. While there, Steve Rogers, in a bittersweet moment, sees Peggy Carter through a window. And Tony ends up having an important conversation with his own father, Howard. Rocket and Thor travel to Asgard to retrieve the Reality Stone. In Asgard, Thor is reminded that his mother Frigga is about to die, and has a chance to communicate with her when Rocket takes the ether, the decaying form of the Reality Stone, from Jane. They return to Earth after Thor retrieves his hammer, Mjolnir, and is thrilled to discover that he is still worthy of it. Nebula and Rhodes travel to Morag to retrieve the Power Stone before Peter Quill finds it. When Rhodes returns to the present with the Power Stone, Nebula falters and becomes trapped on Morag. When both Nebulas are in the same time, their consciousness communicate with each other. And Thanos and Gamora discover the existence of the new Nebula and go to capture her. Nebula realizes what has happened and tries to radio the Avengers, but is captured before she can. Thanos checks her memories and learns everything that will happen to him and the plans of the Avengers. Thanos then sends the bad Nebula back to the present as a spy. Barton and Romanoff travel to Vormir to retrieve the Soul Stone, and are told by its keeper, the Red Skull, that in order to get the stone, one of them must sacrifice someone they love. They both fight it out, each one wishing to be the sacrifice, with Romanoff winning and sacrificing herself, while a troubled Barton returns to Earth with the Soul Stone. With everyone back in the present, Banner, Rocket, and Tony set out to make a new glove made from the same nanotechnology as Tony's latest Iron Man suit. Banner volunteers to wear the glove and bring back everyone who disappeared from Thanos' snap, believing that he can withstand the massive damage from the gamma radiation. Banner succeeds with the new snap, but then they are all very quickly attacked by Thanos, who was brought to Earth by the spy Nebula. Thanos fires on the facility, and the Avengers' Central Command is demolished, separating the group, and the gauntlet falls into Barton's hands. The spy Nebula comes to Barton, and he gives her the gauntlet, thinking she is the good Nebula. Just then, Nebula confronts herself, and ends up shooting the spy Nebula. Rogers, Thor, and Tony confront Thanos, who concludes that he will now use the Infinity Stones to destroy the universe and create his own. The three fight Thanos one-on-one, and Thor is delighted to see Steve pick up and use Mjolnir against Thanos. But in the end, Thanos ends up defeating them. Soon Thanos' troops arrive on the planet, ready for battle, when suddenly T'Challa appears in front of Rogers and all his hero friends that Banner's snap revived. After a long and epic battle, Tony is reunited with Peter Parker, and Peter Quill is reunited with the past Gamora. Thanos is attacked by Wanda, who overwhelms the Titan with her powers, and Thanos orders his ship to fire on both friend and foe, nearly destroying the Avengers' plan. Captain Marvel returns and takes on Thanos' ship, destroying it. At the climax of the battle, Thanos has the gauntlet once again and is about to snap his fingers, but Tony grabs the gauntlet with his hand and removes the Infinity Stones from Thanos' gauntlet and moves it to his nanotech glove. Before Thanos can react, Tony holds up the glove and says, "I am Iron Man," and snaps his fingers, causing Thanos and his army to crumble into dust. Peter Parker and Pepper Potts now comfort Tony as he passes away from the damage caused by the use of the stones. After a bitter battle, the Avengers hold a funeral for Tony, whose first arc reactor is drifted into the lake near his home as a memorial. Barton and Wanda comfort each other in knowing that even though Vision and Romanoff are now gone, they would be rejoicing in their victory over Thanos. Thor makes Valkyrie ruler of Asgard and joins the Guardians of the Galaxy. Rogers is tasked with going back in time to bring the stones and Thor's hammer to their own unique timelines. Once he vanishes, he does not return on schedule, but he does arrive at the scene where they just sent him to the past. Sam and Bucky Barnes see him and see that he is now much older and happier. Steve gives Sam his shield, making Sam the new Captain America, and at the very end, we see a flashback showing Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter in a sweet home as they finally share the dance they never got to all that time ago, and they live a wonderful life together. With this, the movie ends.